Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Key to Success podcast brought to you by the Greatness Podcast Network. On this episode, our topic is accountability. Now, this is definitely going to be one that I'm sure a lot of people have an issue with, but I definitely think it's something that needs to be addressed because I just noticed that society is sort of going down this road where everything is accepted and nothing is your fault. And it really seems like people go out of their way to find someone else to blame for anything that goes wrong in their life. And one thing that I noticed that a lot of successful people are accountable. Whenever something goes wrong, they accept it as if it's their problem and they look for solutions. Successful people are very, very extremely solution oriented. When something goes wrong, they say, okay, how can we fix this? If they get a flat on their car, then okay, how can I fix this? Let's get the spare. Okay, I have a spare, call tow company or something like that. They immediately think about solutions. And I feel like a lot of people today, especially like with the media and the news and Twitter and everything and Facebook, people find various ways to blame someone else for their problems consistently. It's not even like it's a every now and then type of thing. It happens way too often. And I just think that it's a big issue that we really have to deal with. So the first thing I want to get into is Trump. Oh my God, I'm so tired of hearing about Trump and everybody complaining about everything Trump is doing. If it directly affects you, by no means am I saying that it shouldn't bother you or anything. I'm not saying you shouldn't speak out about it. That's definitely not what I'm trying to get at here. All I want to say is a small part of me is glad that he got elected. Now let me explain why. Him being in office, Trump being in office, is forcing more people to be accountable. Before, with the government, they could sort of say, okay, they're going to help us, Obama's going to help us, or Hillary's going to help us, and they would depend on the government to do something for them. With Trump in office, people know they aren't getting any help. So people are getting up and they're taking life more serious. I know a lot of people who went and got a better job, who are trying to get better jobs, things like that. They're looking at life from a different perspective because they know that Trump isn't going to do anything to save them. They know that Donald Trump is not going to be the best president we had. They think he's going to be the worst. Therefore, they're trying to better their lives on their own, which is what you should have been doing from the very beginning. But part of me is glad that Trump is here to force people to be more accountable, because now you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I have to do this. I got to figure this out. Whatever it is you're trying to do, business you're trying to start, if you want to go to a certain school or whatever, you can't keep pointing the finger. Now is the time for you to look at yourself. Like, you can't keep looking at the government to help you. If anything, you should look to your local officials, to be honest. But the president really isn't going to do anything for you. Like, let's be honest. Obama claimed to help a lot of people. That's up for debate. I'm not here to talk politics. All I'm saying is don't look to anybody to help you do anything. It is up to you. Which leads me to my next topic. It's all your fault. Everything is your fault. Everything that happens to you in your life is your fault. No matter what it is. That's the way that you have to look at life if you want to be successful. We have all heard the old cliche, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. And that is so true. Remember what I said, successful people are solution oriented. So no matter what happens, it's your fault. So you have to find a way to fix it. It happened to you. So what are you going to do about it? Now, the people who don't want to be accountable, the first thing they do is look for a bunch of excuses and different people to blame. Oh, it was so-and-so's fault, or it was this person's fault, or I couldn't handle it. They find any excuse. It's just absurd, the excuses you hear these days. And if you really want to be successful in whatever it is you're doing in life, you have to be accountable and just look at it as everything is your fault. No matter what happens, everything is your fault. Find a way to fix it. Because life happens. We all know that life happens, Like, if you're driving to work and you get a flat tire when you get to work and you're late, it's your fault. Like, you can't do anything about that. Like, that's just life. You have to deal with it. That's part of being an adult. That's just how things go. But you have to look at it from the perspective of, how can I fix this? Be solution oriented. When something happens in my life, no matter how bad it is, I immediately start thinking of solutions. I have this rule. I only give myself 10 minutes to be upset about something. 10 minutes, because I have to put that energy that we use to be angry or frustrated into finding a solution to my problem. So no matter what it is, if I can't pay a bill, I can't be mad that I don't have the money to pay the bill. I have to figure out a way to pay the bill because it still has to be paid. That's the thing about being solution oriented. You find a way to deal with your problems much better. One thing that a lot of people do that I think is terrible is they use alcohol or drugs. I understand if you need to use drugs or to deal with certain problems, that makes sense. But if you go and smoke marijuana because you had a rough day or something like that, recreational, whatever, I'm not here to judge. All I'm saying is I prefer not to do that because I like to be in my right mind at all times. And another way I look at it is after I take this drug or sip this drink, my problem is still going to be there. I find other ways to escape reality and my problems, but you also have to look at things like, okay, I have to deal with this regardless. It's not going anywhere. If you fail the test and you have to find a way to make that grade up or something, you have to figure it out. But going and getting drunk isn't going to solve your problem. So running to drugs and alcohol is not going to help you at all. It may be good for some people and you may use it, as a way to deal with issues. But for me personally, I personally don't believe that drugs or alcohol is something that you need to deal with your life and life's problems. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, doesn't drink alcohol, doesn't smoke anything. So I feel like I shouldn't be drinking alcohol, smoking anything. If I want to be successful, I need to live my life as successful people live. I don't take anything or drink anything. I don't do any of that because I want to always be able to focus on issues at hand and take care of my business. Another reason why you need to understand everything is your fault is because you have to make every decision for yourself. Parents, friends, family, they can't make choices for you. I always say that everything is up to you, so it's all your fault. When something happens, it's your fault. You have to decide how you're going to deal with it. They may be able to give you advice and things like that. That's good. But at the end of every day, it's up to you. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. So be accountable for all of your actions. So a big part of being accountable is you have to kill the excuses. You have to stop coming up with reasons why you couldn't do something or why it was hard. Also, an example of this is people want to come up with excuses as to why they couldn't start their business or something like that. When today, literally, you can start a business with literally no money and you can gain knowledge through the internet for free. So you don't really need to have any credibility these days. Like you can literally go online, go on YouTube and learn how to do almost anything and just take the steps to get to where you want to be. You don't have to go and pitch your business plan to somebody in the office anymore. You can just start a website and build from there. You could literally do whatever you want to now. Nothing is holding us back anymore. No excuses are viable. Even race isn't viable. You can make millions online just from a website. People don't even have to know what you look like. If you have good content, then people are going to come regardless. So no excuses are really valid these days. Like none. Like there are no excuses you can tell me that make me say, okay, that makes sense. I mean, unless you're unhealthy, of course, or you're disabled, something like that. Now that makes sense. If you literally cannot do it because your body will not allow you to, that makes sense. Other than that, you can do it. You can do whatever it is you want to. I started my podcast network with no money, with no anything. I just decided I want to do this, and I went and read hundreds of articles, went to hundreds of websites and figured it out. And now I have 5 shows going. Like I just did it. I just said I want to do this and I found a way to do it. That simple. I didn't have money to buy a microphone. I didn't have anybody helping me up. I didn't have any of that. I just figured it out. And that's what more people need to do instead of pointing a finger at everyone else. Excuses are basically for people who are too lazy to figure it out. Because like I said, with the internet, you can figure out anything. You can look back and using YouTube, you can literally learn anything. Using Google, you can look back in history hundreds of years and read almost anything you want to. You could find everything. So there's no viable excuse as to why you haven't already. If you have an excuse, you're just too lazy to figure it out. It's that simple. The other point I want to make is I have to address this shaming thing. I personally feel like shaming is good. Not disrespectful shaming, but and sometimes disrespectful shaming. Shaming is good. Shaming helps us grow. Because if everything is accepted, you never learn how to become a better person. Like you can't grow if you never get any type of criticism. Sometimes criticism can be constructive. Sometimes people are gonna be mean and rude about it. But sometimes that's what it takes. That's gonna help you become a better person. Shaming, we need it. We need it in society. Because if everything is accepted, then it throws off balance. And that's what's happening now. That's one of the reasons why Trump is elected. Because we accept everything in society. A lot of people look at Trump and say, okay, well, whatever. They aren't really shocked by what he says or does because they see worse things every day. Whereas people doing all types of crazy things, people dressing how they want to, saying what they want to, and being who you are and doing what you want to makes sense. But some things you should be shamed for so that it helps you grow. So for me, I have a story about shaming. So when I was young, I was in middle school or just first year in high school. I was about 15, and I went to the mall with my cousin. And that was back before Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You had to actually speak to girls in person. Like you had to go and communicate verbally. So we went to the mall just to speak to girls. We went to go meet new girls. So when we got to the mall, we go to the food court and we see a group of girls. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna go and try to get her phone number. And when I approached the girl, right as I was saying hi, she just sort of snapped on me. And she was like, I would never talk to you. You're ugly. Your clothes are dirty, blah, blah, blah. Just went in on me. And even at that very moment, I was like, wow, like this is harsh, Like, and I knew it was terrible. Like if it happened today, it would be all over the internet, as I would have been laughed at and it would have been memes. It would have been terrible. Yeah, but when it happened, it was a terrible moment. But as I was walking away, I just started looking at myself like, am I really that bad? Like, am I? Like, I had to really take a look at myself. I got home and I looked at myself in the mirror like, wow, like, you really need to start caring about how you dress, start brushing your hair, ironing your clothes, things like that. Like, I had to take a look at myself. So that's when I started dressing better. And in turn, I was able to meet more girls. So if I wouldn't have had that shaming moment, I would have never learned anything. I would have never grown. That moment really helped me change who I was at the time. Like, before I wore the same clothes all the time. I didn't really care how I looked. My hair was just any type of way. Never cared about how my shoes looked. I was just really crummy, dirty kid, but that moment really helped me mature a lot. It helped me grow as a person. I didn't go and say, there's too many people talking about me, and I didn't do all of that. I looked at myself and said, what's wrong? And it made me realize that, you do need to carry yourself better. You do need to care about your appearance more. So I don't even remember that girl's name. Of course, I never got it, but shout out to her. Thank you. Because that helped me grow. At that moment, it hurt my feelings a little bit, but I was more so concerned about if it was true or not. And it was true. She was right. I had to, upgrade myself a little bit, and I did. So I think shaming is something that's necessary. And we don't have shaming more in society. People are shaming. Like you get talked about if you talk about somebody else, when sometimes it's necessary. Another big one is like fat people. If somebody calls you fat, then they're a terrible person for calling you fat. Even if you're overweight and obese and unhealthy. And I get it. It can be rude and mean, and it can be a bad thing. But sometimes it's necessary. If you're overweight to where it's unhealthy, and you can get diabetes, and you just are really out of shape, and too many people in America are obese as it is. The only way you get out of that is if somebody tells you. You need somebody to tell you that, because if nobody tells you, it's obvious you're just gonna keep going down the same road. So somebody telling you that, you need to look at yourself and say, is it true? If it's not true, keep going. If it is, okay, what do I need to do to change this? And even if you want to be fat, that's okay. But be healthy. And most fat people are not healthy, let's be honest, because you don't even know what they're putting in the food you're eating. You eat a lot of processed food, eat a lot of fast food with just terrible things in there, and you're destroying your body. So a lot of fat people are already unhealthy. So you have to look at yourself. So the shaming can be necessary. I'm not saying to go and disrespect people or anything like that. I'm saying that shaming can be productive if you look at yourself after you're shamed. What are you shamed for? Why are people talking about you? Why do you feel like they're disrespecting you?
The most important thing to remember about shaming is if it's not true, then keep going. I think the only time people say that someone is shaming them is if what they're saying is true. You know, if you say, like when the girl called me ugly, my feelings were slightly hurt because my appearance wasn't looking that good that day. So it made sense. So if you're overweight and unhealthy and somebody says you're overweight and unhealthy, then you get upset and say they're fat shaming you. When in reality, they're just pointing out the obvious. So I think that the main thing when someone shames you is really look at yourself and see, is it true? Oh, it's not okay, keep going. Don't let it bother you. Don't.
Like this whole safe place thing, it's just, I don't feel like we'll get anywhere as a society if everybody has a safe place. If you can't take some criticism, if you can't take being talked about, that's how the world works. Especially now, like that situation happened with me in the mall. If it happened today, with all the social media outlets we have, I would be all over the internet. And you have to deal with it. That's part of the world. That's how it works. So you're not gonna have a safe space in the world. Like that's just how the world is. The world doesn't care about you. They don't. It's that simple. The internet definitely doesn't care about anybody. They will turn on anyone. I've seen all types of celebrities and even the internet famous people just get talked about and dragged down the timeline, and it's embarrassing, and they thought it would never happen to them, but that's how it works. I don't believe in the whole safe space moniker because it creates a culture now to where people don't have to be held accountable for anything they say or do. You can say anything, wear anything, do anything, and it's just supposed to be accepted. And that's not a good route that we're going down. Because then we'll have a situation in society where people don't do anything and they just feel like everything is okay. It's not okay. There are people now who are trying to normalize pedophilia and things like that, and that's not okay. We can't normalize everything. We can't make everything seem amazing and great, and we don't need to do that, because then when somebody does something great, what do you tell them? You know, you aren't courageous for doing that, for doing little small things. You just aren't. It's not. You don't need to be put on a pedestal for it. Sometimes we need to be shamed because it helps you be accountable. Accountability is important. If you aren't accountable, if you can't hold yourself accountable for anything, you will not be successful in life. You won't make it too far in life.
And if you listen to what I said the last few episodes about thinking for yourself and not really caring what people think of you, then shaming won't affect you too much anyways. You know, if you don't care what people think of you, you don't care what everyone else has to say, and you live your life how you want to, no one can shame you. Like, they will have their opinions, but they don't matter to you. So you can just keep on going, continue to ignore them, live your life. So shaming is, like I said, it only really applies. People only really cry shaming when whatever is being said has some truth to it.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this episode, but hey, it is what it is. I'm speaking my mind. Thank you all for listening. I'm your host, Chris. You can find me on Twitter. Come in, tell me your point of view, argue with me at I'm Just Greatness. Find me on the Facebook page, the Greatness Podcast Network. Go there and tell me why you mad. I want to hear it. Let me know your story. Let me know what you were ashamed about. I want to hear it. The Greatness Podcast Network also hosts other shows.
You can listen to the Money Talks podcast and learn about your finances. Check out Health is Wealth and learn about a healthier lifestyle. We even have The Plug, our pop culture entertainment podcast. So the Greatness Podcast Network has everything you need. Please check us out. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere you can listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Chris, here to remind you, always be who you are, not who it's convenient to be.